On Thursday, December 14th, the Zoning Board of Appeals concluded its public hearing on the appeal filed by neighbors seeking the revocation of the building permit issued for the proposed daycare facility at 1688 Central Avenue. After hearing arguments from both sides, the board shared their initial reflections on the matter. We turn to municipal producer Yu Xiaoyuan for the details.
The dispute over the 1688 Central Avenue project began in 2021 when it was first presented to the planning board. Developer Needham Enterprises LLC, owned by former Select Board member Matt Borelli, proposed a 10,000 square foot daycare center on the 3-acre parcel. The facility is intended to be leased to the Needham Children's Center, whose longtime host, the First Baptist Church, had recently closed. Despite being in an area zoned for single-family homes, the developer was able to bypass that zoning because of a state law commonly referred to as the Dover Amendment, which exempts childcare facilities from local zoning regulations. After 9 months of hearings, the planning board approved the project in March 2022, imposing multiple conditions addressing neighbors' concerns. This includes the demolition of an existing barn to create a 120-foot setback, significantly increasing the proposed 64-foot setback to alleviate backup traffic on Central Avenue caused by vehicles waiting to turn left into the facility. Needham Enterprises appealed the planning board's decision to the Massachusetts Land Court and won the case in August. The judge ruled the planning board overstepped its authority and the project complies with the zoning bylaws. In September, Building Commissioner Joe Prondak issued the building permit. 1 month later, 9 abutters from 7 families filed an appeal with the ZBA. The ZBA held hearings on November 16th and December 14th, where Acting Chair Howard Goldman emphasized the board's limited authority. They can either revoke or uphold the permit without additional conditions.
This is an appeal of the building commissioner's building permit. It's not a variance hearing. It's not a special permit hearing. And the board does not possess the ability to place conditions on the project because of that.
The abutters attorney Dylan Sanders argued the issuance of the building permit is premature as the project is still subject to a judicial appeal.
The neighbors are currently appealing from the land court. Their appeal is pending in the appeals court. The appeals court has said that a potential outcome of the abutters' appeal may be a retrial.
Sanders offered arguments reminiscent of those made during previous planning board hearings. He questioned whether the existing 4,800 square foot barn on the property should be classified as an accessory building. If not deemed as such, Sanders contended it would violate the zoning bylaws by having 2 non-residential structures on the same lot. Building Commissioner Joe Prondak clarified that, following consultations with the town council, the town's stance is not to preclude the developer from proceeding with the project due to a pending appeal.
The building permit has issued. The developer is free to go ahead and build that building at his own risk, and should the neighbors prevail on that appeal.
Prondak conveyed the developer had verbally assured the barn would only be used as storage associated with the daycare center. He added, should the applicant use the barn for other purposes once the facility opens, he would have the authority to enforce compliance.
Given that the fact that we know the developer is a contractor as well, if he, for example, started storing his construction equipment there, that would be a violation of the bylaw. That would be bringing another. That would be bringing a commercial non-permitted use into that residential district, and we could cite him for that.
Developer's attorney Evans Huber cited testimony from the director of the Needham Children's Center and the architect, stressing the barn is needed for storage.
If you were at the trial, you would have heard Pat Day, who runs the Needham Children's Center, who's going to be the tenant there, testify that they are currently using about 2,000 square feet of storage space at their current location. You would have heard Mark Glusing, the architect, testify that this building was designed with minimal indoor storage space because it was always the understanding that the barn was going to be used for storage for the child care facility.
Throughout the planning board hearings, residents consistently voiced apprehensions regarding potential soil contamination on the site, linked to allegedly unlicensed auto repair activities by its prior owner. They presented photos of rusted cars and oil drums, requesting soil testing. The soil issue resurfaced during the ZBA hearings.
Why not actually just do the test and figure out what we're dealing with? Like, why are we doing like guesswork here? It just doesn't seem worth it.
Attorney Evans Huber noted a licensed site professional had found no visible evidence of hazardous materials on the property. He further mentioned that, regardless of the site's current status, the developer intends to implement remedial measures. This includes covering pervious areas accessible to children with 12 inches of clean soil. Additionally, Huber challenged the ZBA's authority in this matter.
You cannot revoke the building permit unless you point to a specific provision of the bylaw that this project does not comply with. Putting aside whether or not, 12 inches of fill is the right way to address this or not, there's no bylaw in the town that controls this.
Tim McDonald, director of Needham Department of Health and Human Services, wrote to the ZBA on December 4th, stating the Board of Health listened to resident comments at its November 17th meeting but chose to take no action. He elaborated the Board of Health would only use its regulatory power over personal property based on documentation and evidence, not on anecdotal reports or old photographs. During the ZBA hearing, Acting Chair Howard Goldman suggested residents channel their concerns to the State Department of Environmental Protection. In response, Greg Darish, a neighbor to the property, urged the board to suspend the permit until the DEP reaches a conclusion.
Just some limited testing. It won't even take that long. Please suspend this permit so that we can test and make sure that everybody's safe.
Between the two hearings, around a dozen abutters and neighbors stepped forward to support the appeal, advocating for strict adherence to the conditions set by the planning board, which include expanding the setback and addressing traffic concerns. Representatives from the Needham Children's Center urged the board to uphold the permit to prevent any further delays in the project timeline. They mentioned the original opening date for the new facility was set for October 2023. Following the closure of the hearing on December 14th, the board initiated its deliberations. In general, board members concurred with the building commissioner's discretion, noting their limited authority over many of the raised issues due to constraints by the Dover Amendment and the Land Court's decision. The ZBA is scheduled to continue its deliberations at the January meeting. For Needham Channel News, I'm Yu Xiaoyuan.